Hello, friends. Please take a moment to fill out our listener survey. It's anonymous, and we use this data to get to know you and your interests. It also gives you a chance to tell us how we might make Sleep Tight Relax better for you. You can find the survey at sleeptightrelax.com/survey or follow the link in our show notes. Filling out the survey only takes a few minutes, and your feedback will help us improve our podcast and help us find new sponsors who interest you. As a way of saying thank you, you will be entered to win a $500 gift card. Visit sleeptightrelax.com/survey or follow the link in our show notes. Thank you for your support. Hello, I'm Sheryl, and this is Sleep Tight Relax, a calming bedtime podcast for the young and young at heart. It's time to get cozy in bed and listen to tonight's story. Our sleep story tonight is part 4 of our story about Doctor Dolittle. Dr. Dolittle and his animals have escaped from the dungeon, and the king is furious. He sends his men into the jungle to look for them, but they cannot find them anywhere. Chi-Chi the monkey knows the best places to hide and keeps them hidden until the king's men get tired and go home to sleep. Dr. Dolittle and his animals keep going until they almost reach the land of the monkeys, when they realize that the king's men are behind them again, and they are very close to catching them. No matter how your day was, let's forget about it for now and focus on slowing down and feeling relaxed. Close your eyes and feel warm and secure. Next, I would like you to take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. As big a breath as you can and as slow as you can. Then, slowly let the air out through your mouth. Taking deep belly breaths helps us relax at any time of the day, but it's a great habit to have before sleep. Try it again. Take a deep breath in and let the air slowly flow out. Take a deep breath in and now out. Breathe in deeply, filling your body with air and relaxation. Breathe out slowly, expelling any tension. Try to keep breathing slowly and deeply as we continue with Dr. Dolittle, Part 4. Queen Ermintrude had never in her life seen her husband so angry as he got that night. He called everybody names, he threw his toothbrush at the palace cat, he rushed around in his nightshirt and woke up all his army and sent them into the jungle to catch the doctor. Then he made all his workers go too, his cooks and his gardeners and his barber and Prince Bumpo's tutor. Even the queen, who was tired from dancing in a pair of tight shoes, was packed off to help the soldiers in their search. All this time, the doctor and his animals were running through the forest towards the land of the monkeys as fast as they could go. Gub-Gub with his short legs soon got tired, and the doctor had to carry him, which made it pretty hard when they had the trunk and the handbag with them as well. The king thought it would be easy for his army to find them because the doctor was in a strange land and would not know his way. But he was wrong, because the monkey Chi-Chi knew all the paths through the jungle, better even than the king's men did. And he led the doctor and his pets to the very thickest part of the forest, a place where no man had ever been before, and hid them in a big hollow tree between high rocks. "We had better wait here," said Chi-Chi, "till the soldiers have gone back to bed. Then we can go on into the land of the monkeys." So there they stayed the whole night. They often heard the king's men searching and talking in the jungle around them. But they were quite safe, for no one knew of that hiding place but Chi-Chi, not even the other monkeys. At last, when daylight began to come through the thick leaves overhead, they heard Queen Ermintrude saying in a very tired voice that it was no use looking any more, that they might as well go back and get some sleep. As soon as the soldiers had all gone home, Chi-Chi brought the doctor and his animals out of the hiding place, and they set off for the land of the monkeys. It was a long, long way, and they often got very tired, especially Gub-Gub. But when he cried, they gave him milk from the coconuts, which he was very fond of. They always had plenty to eat and drink, because Chi-Chi and Polynesia knew all the different kinds of fruits and vegetables that grow in the jungle, and where to find them, like dates, figs, ground nuts, ginger, and yams. They used to make their lemonade out of the juice of wild oranges, sweetened with honey, which they got from the bees' nests in the hollow tree. No matter what it was they asked for, Chi-Chi and Polynesia always seemed to be able to get it for them, or something like it. At night, they slept in tents made of palm leaves on thick, soft beds of dried grass. And after a while, they got used to walking a lot and did not get so tired, and enjoyed the life of travel very much. But they were always glad when the night came and they stopped for their resting time. Then the doctor used to make a little fire of sticks, and after they had had their supper, they would sit around it in a ring, listening to Polynesia singing songs about the sea, or to Chi-Chi telling stories of the jungle. And many of the tales that Chi-Chi told were very interesting, because although the monkeys had no history books of their own before Doctor Dolittle came to write them for them, they remember everything that happens by telling stories to their children. And Chi-Chi spoke of many things his grandmother had told him, tales of long, long, long ago, of the days when men dressed in bearskins and lived in holes in the rock and ate their meat raw, because they did not know what cooking was, having never seen a fire. And he told them of the great mammoths and lizards as long as a train that wandered over the mountains in those times, nibbling from the treetops. And often they got so interested in listening that when he had finished, they found their fire had gone right out, and they had to scurry around to get more sticks and build a new one. Now, when the king's army had gone back and told the king that they couldn't find the doctor, the king sent them out again and told them they must stay in the jungle until they caught him. So all this time, while the doctor and his animals were going along towards the land of the monkeys, thinking themselves quite safe, they were still being followed by the king's men. If Chi-Chi had known this, he would most likely have hidden them again, but he didn't know it. One day, Chi-Chi climbed up a high rock and looked out over the treetops. And when he came down, he said they were now quite close to the land of the monkeys and would be there soon. And that same evening, sure enough, they saw Chi-Chi's cousin and a lot of other monkeys who had not yet gotten sick, sitting in the trees by the edge of the swamp, looking and waiting for them. And when they saw that the famous doctor had really come, these monkeys made a tremendous noise, cheering and waving leaves and swinging out on the branches to greet him. They wanted to carry his bag and his trunk and everything he had, and one of the bigger ones even carried Gub-Gub, who had gotten tired again. Then 2 of them rushed on in front to tell the sick monkeys that the great doctor had come at last. But the king's men, who were still following, had heard the noise of the monkeys cheering, and they at last knew where the doctor was and hurried on to catch him. The big monkey carrying Gub-Gub was coming along slowly behind, and he saw the captain of the army sneaking through the trees. So he hurried after the doctor and told him to run. Then they all ran harder than they had ever run in their lives, and the king's men coming after them began to run too, and the captain ran hardest of all. Then the doctor tripped over his medicine bag and fell down in the mud, and the captain thought he would surely catch him this time. But the captain had very long ears, though his hair was very short, and as he sprang forward to take hold of the doctor, one of his ears got caught in a tree, and the rest of the army had to stop and help him. By this time, the doctor had picked himself up, and on they went again, running and running. And Chi-Chi shouted, "It's all right, we haven't got too far to go now." But before they could get into the land of the monkeys, they came to a steep cliff with a river flowing below. This was the end of the kingdom of Jolinki, and the land of the monkeys was on the other side, across the river. And Jip the dog looked down over the edge of the steep, steep cliff and said, "Golly, how are we ever going to get across?" "Oh dear," said Gub-Gub, "the king's men are quite close now. Look at them. I am afraid we are going to be taken back to prison again." And he began to cry. But the big monkey who was carrying the pig dropped him on the ground and cried out to the other monkeys, "Boys, a bridge! Quick, make a bridge! We've only a minute to do it. They've got the captain loose and he's coming on like a deer. Get lively! A bridge! A bridge!" The doctor began to wonder what they were going to make a bridge out of, and he gazed around to see if they had any boards hidden anywhere. But when he looked back at the cliff, there, hanging across the river, was a bridge, all ready for him, made of living monkeys. For while his back was turned, the monkeys, quick as a flash, had made themselves into a bridge by holding hands and feet. And the big one shouted to the doctor, walk over, all of you, hurry!" Gub-Gub was a bit scared walking on such a narrow bridge at that dizzy height above the river. But he got over all right, and so did all of them. Dr. Dolittle was the last to cross, and just as he was getting to the other side, the king's men came rushing up to the edge of the cliff. Then they shook their fists and yelled with rage, for they saw they were too late. The doctor and all his animals were safe in the land of the monkeys, and the bridge was pulled across to the other side. Dr. Dolittle now became dreadfully busy. He found hundreds and thousands of monkeys sick, Gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, baboons, gray monkeys, red ones, all kinds. The first thing he did was to separate the sick ones from the well ones. Then he got Chi-Chi and his cousin to build him a little house of grass. After that, he made all the monkeys who were still well come and be vaccinated. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the monkeys kept coming from the jungles and the valleys and the hills to the little house of grass, where the doctor sat all day and all night, vaccinating and vaccinating. Then he had another house made, a big one, with a lot of beds in it, and he put all the sick monkeys in this house. But so many were sick, there were not enough well ones to do the nursing. So he sent messages to the other animals, like the lions and the leopards and the antelopes, to come and help with the nursing. But the leader of the lions was a very proud creature, and when he came to the doctor's big house full of beds, he seemed angry and scornful. "Do you dare to ask me, sir?" he said, glaring at the doctor. "Do you dare to ask me, the king of beasts, to wait on a lot of dirty monkeys? Why, I wouldn't even eat them between meals." Although the lion looked very terrible, the doctor tried hard not to seem afraid of him. "I didn't ask you to eat them," he said quietly, "and besides, they're not dirty. They all had a bath this morning. Your coat looks as though it needed brushing badly. Now listen, and I'll tell you something. The day may come when the lions get sick, and if you don't help the other animals now, the lions may find themselves left alone when they are in trouble. That often happens to proud people." "The lions are never in trouble. They only make trouble," said the leader, turning up his nose. And he stalked away into the jungle, feeling he had been rather smart and clever. Then the leopards got proud too and said they wouldn't help. And then, of course, the antelopes, although they were too shy and timid to be rude to the doctor like the lion, pawed the ground, smiled foolishly, and said they had never been nurses before. And now the poor doctor was very worried, wondering where he could get enough help to take care of all these thousands of monkeys in bed. But the leader of the lions, when he got back to his den, saw his wife, the queen lioness, come running out to meet him with her hair untidy. "One of the cubs won't eat," she said. "I don't know what to do with him. He hasn't taken a thing since last night." And she began to cry, for she was a good mother even though she was a lioness. So the leader went into his den and looked at his children, 2 very smart little cubs, lying on the floor, and one of them seemed quite ill. Then the lion told his wife, quite proudly, just what he had said to the doctor. And she got so angry, she nearly drove him out of the den. "You never did have a grain of sense," she screamed. "All the animals from here to the ocean are talking about this wonderful man and how he can cure any kind of sickness and how kind he is. The only man in the whole world who can talk the language of the animals. And now, when we have a sick baby on our hands, you must go and offend him? Nobody but a silly person is ever rude to a good doctor. You..." And she started pulling at her husband's hair. "Go back to that man at once," she yelled, "and tell him you are sorry, and take all the other empty-headed lions with you, and those silly leopards and antelopes. Then do everything the doctor tells you. Work as hard as you can, and perhaps he will be kind enough to come and see the cub later. Now be off. Hurry, I tell you." And she went into the den next door where another mother lion lived and told her all about it. So the leader of the lions went back to the doctor and said, "I happened to be passing this way and thought I'd look in. Do you have any help yet?" "No," said the doctor, "I haven't, and I'm very worried." "Help's pretty hard to get these days," said the lion. "Animals don't seem to want to work anymore. You can't blame them in a way." "Well, seeing you're having difficulty, I don't mind doing what I can, just to oblige you, so long as I don't have to wash the creatures. And I have told all the other hunting animals to come and do their share. The leopards should be here any minute now. Oh, and by the way, we've got a sick cub at home. I don't think there's much the matter with him myself, but the wife is anxious. If you are around that way this evening, you might take a look at him, will you?" Then the doctor was very happy, for all the lions and the leopards and the antelopes and the giraffes and the zebras, all the animals of the forest and the mountain and the plains, came to help him in his work. There were so many of them that he had to send some away and only keep the most helpful. And now very soon the monkeys began to get better, and at the end of a week, the big house full of beds was half empty. And at the end of the second week, the last monkey had gotten well. Then the doctor's work was finished, and he was so tired he went to bed and slept for 3 days without even turning over. And that is the end of this part. Good night. Sleep tight.